Dixie Cochran here with Eddie Webb.
Hello.
And Matthew Dawkins.
Hello.
This is one of our interview episodes. We're going to be talking to John Snead, who's the developer for Trinity, Aeon, as well as quite a few other projects, both for us and other companies. And
oh my god, so many.
Writer and, as we learned during the interview, magic system developer.
Yes.
Who has done something like 22 different magic systems.
Yeah, that was quite stunning.
Yeah, as somebody who does not do a whole lot with mechanics work, I was like, how do you have that many systems come out of your brain?
And also, weirdly, a unintentional sequel about Blue Rose.
Yeah. It's like, so to continue with our Blue Rose deep dive we've been doing for the past 2 interview episodes.
I promise you, you haven't accidentally tuned into a Green Ronin podcast. Right. but it does seem we're talking about their games a lot recently.
Yeah, and so, we're going to have Malcolm Shepard talk about Modern Age and all these other things. And we're going to have Chris Pramas and Nicole Lindrews. Yeah, it's just going to be the Green Ronin podcast from now on.
We've run through all the Onyx Path developers.
Well, I mean, we joke about that, but also I do actually need to reach out to Steve and do an interview with Kenson about Aberrant at some point in the future, too. So
this is the Green Ronin block of podcasting. Of publishing?
Right.
This isn't publishing.
Yeah, it just goes to show, though, how this industry works. And it's one of the best things about this industry. It's the way that you will work with someone who has worked on a game that is tangentially connected to you in another way, or you've basically been using the same freelancers for different projects. Sometimes it can feel a bit incestuous, a bit oppressive because everybody knows everybody. But on other occasions, it makes networking in this industry so much more enjoyable because you tend to be friends, or at the very least professional associates with almost everybody by default. It's one of the things I like about working in RPGs. It's when we attend conventions, we can just bump into people we've not worked with for a couple of years, but we will very shortly work with again.
Oh yeah, I've definitely made the RPG, freelancing community in incestuous comment a few times, because it's like you will definitely work with people on things you don't even realize that you're working with them on, because if you're both writers, you might not know who all the other writers are. Or if I'm editing something, it's not until I see the credits page that I go, oh, my friend worked on this, that's cool. And then I don't even know which part they wrote. But yeah, and the other flip side of that is when there's somebody that everybody else seems to know that you've just never met. Like, I'll occasionally see somebody on Facebook or, Twitter where we have 93 mutuals, and they're like the creator of a role-playing game, and I'm like, I have no clue who that person is. Never heard of them, never met them. That's weird. Or one of my other, colleagues will drop a name as if everyone knows who this person is, and I'm like, who? I don't know who that is. Who's that? And it's always weird when that happens, because at some point you've been to a few Gen Cons, you've been to a few PAX Unplugs, whatever. You kind of assume you've met everyone, and you just haven't. Like, it's a much larger industry than I think I even realized when I started.
Yeah.
So sometimes the generational gap is quite clear in that sense.
Yes.
In that mutual friends analogy. Gen Con last year, I went to lunch with Ken Hite, because we worked together on V5, and Jonathan Tweet. And I'd never met Jonathan Tweet before. And we were all there discussing V5, among other things. And listening to Jonathan talk about the various people he's worked with, who I don't think I will ever get a chance to work with, in some cases because they're dead, it was quite eye-opening. Because you can really look back. Everything in this industry is so well chronicled because it's a creative industry. Mm-hmm. Our work, I guess, stands on shelves or on Drive-Thru RPG, that you can really trace the history of it and, still get a chance to work with, I guess, the people we might consider legends of the industry. And who knows, maybe one day the two of us, I don't know which one of you I'm addressing there, the two of us will be considered legends as well.
Oh, there can be only two.
Yeah, not you though, not you.
me and Eddie are gonna have to fight it out Thunderdome style.
Yeah.
Oh, you can kick my ass. You'll definitely win.
I don't know.
Just punch me in the ear. I'll go down. It's easy. I mean,
how awful of a person would I have to be to punch you in the ear?
well, Dixie, I mean, you'll get the legend of being nice.
Some people
That's not true.
do.
That's not true at all, actually.
I would much rather be just kill people with kindness. Just be so nice that you just die of sugar poisoning.
The Meredith Gerber method. I see. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's how I always dealt with really terrible customers in every retail job that I had. Is you get nicer and slightly less smart every time they yell at you.
Oh, right.
Until by the end, you're just sitting there with like your eyes 3 times bigger than they have any right to be, going, yeah, totally. I'll get that for you right away. Yep. And it's really, really funny. I have had friends that watch me go into that mode, and they're like, "Oh, you were pissed, huh?" And I'm like, And there was one way to get around it.
It's the best form of passive aggression, anyway, when you're working in retail. I remember when I used to work at... we'll get to John Snead in a minute. You wait over there, John. When I used to work in customer service, both at shops and in offices, dealing with financial advisors and investors over the phone. And obviously, investors have a tendency to be temperamental, because if they lose all their money, they like to blame you, or they like to blame someone. And if you happen to be the person manning the phone, well, it's your bad day coming up. And one of the ways I would train people to handle these sorts of calls and how I used to deal with them is try to have a smile on your face, no matter what they're saying, even if it's the most insincere thing you can do, because it will come through, and either it will crush them, because it will become apparent to them that their words are having no effect on you whatsoever. Or the better result is you get through to the end of the call and you don't feel quite as bad as if you had been sitting there sliding down into your chair, letting the words really hammer you down into the ground. Kill them with kindness via passive aggression is my my addendum to that.
So that's why you're so nice to me at Redlines. Now I understand.
Yeah. I have a big rictus grin on my face when I do your red lines, Eddie.
Oh no!
So the
I can just
Joker
see it now.
over here.
Matthew and I are going to be redlining Mummy 2E very soon. I'm just imagining him, training me to his style of red lines. Like, you have to be
more
grinning the
specifically,
entire time.
I'm redlining both of you right now, so just remember this moment.
Are you smiling? Is it?
Oh, I'm loving every minute of it.
Taking red pin to something does give you a bit of a gleeful experience, in my opinion.
It's true.
I actually miss getting to physically redline things when I was in college. Because there's just something so satisfying about taking out a red pen and doing it. And of course now they're telling people to use green because it's friendlier, and I'm like, but I don't want to be friendly. I want the red line. Although I do have them set on my computer to pink instead of red, because I got tired of looking at red.
Yeah.
I just got to a point where I was like, I don't want to look at red anymore. And I tried green, and it just doesn't read as well as far as me like being able to see where all the changes are. So I set it to a very lovely, very, very pink. And I think it makes me happier.
I think I have some kind of mental block when it comes to green ink, because I remember being told at school you're not allowed to write in green because green is a rude... if you write a letter in green, it's a rude colour to use. I know this sounds like the most bizarre thing that you might have ever been told on this podcast, but we were told that if you write a letter in green, you're basically being rude to the recipient.
So does that, like, don't hug me, I'm scared, green is not a creative color thing? Just like
exactly, yeah, it's permeated the British culture, the educational system. And I think it was just the teacher's way of saying, we only want you to write your essays in black or blue at a push. But, and get all these people with their creative coloured biros away from our classes. But yeah, for that reason, I don't think I have ever written anything in green ink. Otherwise, I would have been writing everything in green. Everything.
As somebody that has green hair and loves the color green, I write in green ink all the time. I do my calendar in green. I'm a big fan of it. So
and I just look at you, and I think you're just being rude to me and everyone else.
Well, I'm American, so
yeah. Anyway, shall we get on to this interview?
On to the interview with John Snead. And welcome back. I am here with Eddie Fate.
Hello.
And today we are interviewing John Snead. Hello, John.
Hello.
So John is one of our developers for Trinity Aeon, but he has done so much more than that. So I'm going to go ahead and just get right into it. John, can you tell us a little bit about your history with the role-playing community and some of the projects for Onyx Path, White Wolf, and any other companies that you've worked on, just to give our listeners some context in case they don't know who you are?
Okay, well, my first role-playing assignment was what is now the several generations back ancestor of Onyx Path, Lion Rampant Games.
Wow.
Yep, where I co-wrote the Fairies book for Ars Magica.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and that was just like chance. A friend of mine had gotten the assignment and then got a full-time retail job when I was a grad student. And it was like, you know a lot about this, and I'm feeling confused and I'm busy. Could you do that? So I and a friend wrote it. And it was all good, and I decided, this beats, grad school in anthropology and has more career prospects, sadly enough. So after that, I just sort of started writing for everyone and worked on a lot for Mage the Ascension and Last Unicorn Star Trek game and huge amounts of other things, pretty much everything under the sun for White Wolf and Onyx Path, especially Exalted. And then, did a bunch of other projects. My first sort of, hey, this is my project, here's the ideas and stuff, was Blue Rose, where I came up with the basic, what is this about? And then, Steve Kenson and I and a couple other people, made it a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm still, third generation in, writing for Onyx Path now, so that's cool. And just recently I've been the, I'm not exactly sure how you call it, either, I think basically associate assistant whatever developer for Mindjammer for Sarah Newton's Mindjammer Press.
Very cool. Yeah, we were just talking with Joe Carricker about Blue Rose in our last interview episode. So
cool.
It's kind of fun to kind of, throw it back even a little farther and talk to you about Blue Rose now. That was one of the things that you kind of, that you helped create. And it's such an interesting world. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, well, at the time, I was like, I read a lot of science fiction and fantasy, and I'd been reading a bunch of Mercedes Lakey and Diane Duane and things like that. And it's like, well, there isn't really a name for this sort of subgenre of fantasy, and there's also aren't any games for it. And so I coined the name Romantic Fantasy because it seemed to fit. It's like, hey, would anyone want to publish this? And approached a bunch of people, and Green Ronin was like, that's a good idea. And, there it happened.
That's really, really cool, because honestly, that's a subgenre of fantasy that I've always loved. So when somebody first, showed me Blue Rose or talked about Blue Rose with me, I was like, oh, I can play these things that I used to read when I was much younger, and that I've continued to read as I've gotten older. People that, know me in real life know that one of my kind of it's not a guilty pleasure, there's no such thing, but for a long time, I wouldn't talk about the fact that I actively read romance novels. Mostly historicals. That's a thing that I'm into. And it's cool to be able to bring that into a role-playing game and not feel like, people don't want it there.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so you've been in the industry for quite a while then. Is freelancing, the main thing you do? Is that what you've done for a while? What's that like?
Yeah, no, basically when I eventually got to the point in grad school of this is not remotely fun anymore, and career prospects in cultural anthropology are frankly terrible. And it's like, well, okay, let's try to see how this will work. And yeah, it's basically what I do.
Yeah, well, I think it's awesome that you do have that experience in cultural anthropology, because that's why I brought you on to be one of the writers on Victorian Mage.
Yep.
You came to me at, I think, Gen Con and mentioned
Yes.
that, and I was like, oh, okay, because I was sitting here going like, we have all these different cultural sections, we have to handle this sensitively because of the time period. We also don't want to not address atrocities that were happening at the time. So yeah, John came up to me and was like, oh, so that my degree's kind of in this. And I'm like, oh, you're going to write my advice to storytellers and whatever about how to handle this stuff.
Yep.
I was like, because that's the background that I needed and didn't realize that I even needed. So
yeah, my specialty was basically anthropology of colonialism.
Right,
So it's pretty perfect.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, that's when I was making the provisional writer list for Victorian Mage, that's the note I had by your name as far as experience. Because I'm like, this is important for us. So yeah, that's really, really cool. And I'm glad to have you on that team. And to completely switch gears, you also work on Trinity.
Yep.
On Aeon specifically, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So how is that project for you? How long were you attached to that? Because I know Trinity has been an ongoing thing for several years. So
Yeah, well, basically my first work was that? Yeah, one of my first assignments for White Wolf rather than Lion Rampant. I remember I got at Gen Con one time, walked up and saw these, I think it was 96, 97, whenever it wasn't yet out. They were doing a bunch of promo material, and it's psychic powers and space travel and, getting talked to about it. I was like, hey, I'd like to write this. And so I got a little bit of assignment on the tech book. The main book wasn't even out yet. And, I did a bunch of things for that. And then, when it got revived, I was all, hey, Rich. And he was like, cool. And so I ended up the developer and from the very beginning. And yeah, when was that? March of 2013 now, I sent out my first outlines and stuff to prospective authors, and at long last, we have a book.
Right? Almost. Very close to having a book.
Yep. It needs editing, but it is now a book. Yeah, with art and everything, or almost all the art or something.
Yeah. No, it's been edited completely. It just needs indexing.
Yes, and the proofreading, but yes, last bit.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm so excited to actually see Trinity. Because I edited that before I came on full time, so it's been almost a year now.
Yeah.
But then I know we had to hammer away at StoryPath a little bit here and there because of just making sure it works right. And I think it does. I think it works very well now. So I'm super excited to see both the Trinity core and Aeon. Or Aeon, or however you say it. Someone's going to yell at me online.
Yeah. I say Aeon, but, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I say words good. That's why I have a podcast.
Yeah. Good thing you have an audio-based podcast to screw up pronunciations on.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I do a lot of physical things while I'm doing the podcast. I wave my hands around and I talk, and I'm like, nobody can see this. I don't know why I'm even making facial expressions, but here we are.
High quality audio content.
So, John, what What changes from the original Trinity books to Aeon have you really enjoyed? Is there any new content that you're particularly proud of?
Well, I mean, a lot of it was there were sort of two separate tracks. I mean, I loved the original, but there was something I saw in a bunch of games from around the time it was released. I also worked on this one that has now vanished in the mist of history, Blue Planet. And that both of them had the thing of, I could basically say, fear of cell phones. That was a late 90s science fiction game thing. And so, and, because, nobody really had media of movies or TV or anything that really dealt with how actiony heroes could deal with being constantly in communication and especially getting, regular access to information. But now we have that. I mean, I was in the early 2000s, I was watching Burn Notice and going, that's how it's done. So at that point, one of the changes I wanted to make definitely was, hey, characters get something better than a smartphone, not less good, because that would just annoy people. But, that was just a personal hobby horse of mine. The big ones were with the Psi Orders. I mean, I loved from the very beginning that Aeon was such a world game. I mean, it was not just United States or even Europe based. It was like, psychic orders from Africa and China and India and everything. But some of it was not the best. I mean, I was not pleased that okay, Norca, I don't know how to say these. I do not know Spanish or actually Portuguese. Norca, Norsa, whatever. I have no idea how to pronounce it. But
I think it's Norca.
Yeah, that they were basically South American drug lords. And I was like, that's got to go. And then, I can understand the reasoning for the legions being originally mercenaries, but, it's like, after the Iraq War and Blackwater, it's like the mercenaries are now villains in media, and so let's go for something that fits better. And so UN troops and the Norca were recast into originally eco-terrorists, and then just ecological activists as they settled down and things got a little better, and the Asclepian Order, which, I mean, I love the concept, but basically in the original, they were the clerics.
Right.
And the clerics are often boring. And so I made them the first responders because, first responders are awesome. It was sort of a tribute to my great uncle, who was a fire chief, passed away recently at the age of 99. So, good life. But it's like, firefighters are awesome and other first responders are awesome. So that's what these people are going to be.
Right.
And those are the big changes in sort of the overall setting. And then it was, a few tweaks here and there. I mean, one of the things that I like is that, the Upewamako are back. And so we have, Baladi Atuan, the proxy, is, now a present character, as she wasn't in the original book until, Stellar Frontiers came out. And, well, actually a minor change I make that I'm proud of. It's like, now she has on the cover her star color covered headscarf, because I decided, well, there are a lot of Muslims in Africa, and we have somebody who's openly Christian, and stuff like somebody who's Baha'i. How about one of the other major religions? And so just dropped a line in there about her being a Muslim.
Right.
Nice.
That's how representation should work. It's not that difficult to put someone in a headscarf in the art or someone who is Muslim. And especially when it makes sense culturally and geographically.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I like about Trinity. Its themes are so wonderful, just as far as, hope and compassion and everything. But also, like, when I edited it, I was not familiar with the original. So it's interesting you talking about, bringing these things back or how you changed them. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was a change, but that's really cool because I actually really love the Norca, the way that they're written. And I wasn't familiar with their history. So
well, Alex Melkor did an amazing job with them. I mean, my goal, I didn't always manage, and I didn't find anyone who'd actually been to India to write the section on India, but I tried to find people who were familiar with the various areas. Alex, lives in Mexico and has worked in South America a lot, and so travels there regularly for business. So it's like, yes, how about you? And he was like, I would love to. Partly because he'd written the stuff in the, what was that book called? The sort of only released as a PDF Norca South America book at the very end of the Aeon line. It was like the last thing produced. But so that was also neat, getting to work with some of the original people and also hiring a whole bunch of new people, some of whom were just amazing.
Yeah, I think it's really fun when we have a mix of old and new on any game that we're working on. Just because you want the fresh new voices and you want new representation and you want to hire new talent and discover new talent on some level, but also it's fun to bring back folks who worked on a line originally and put him back on it for some reason. Like we were talking with Joe Carricker last week about him maybe doing some Exalted stuff coming up, and it's like he hasn't been in Exalted for a while, so it'll be fun to maybe get him back into it.
Cool.
And I think it's interesting. We talked about updating the material because right around the time that Trinity, when Aeon was just Trinity, that it became Aeon, or Aeon became Trinity. My bad.
Right.
But there was definitely that kind of moment in sci-fi, because this is late cyberpunk, where we're gonna have multicultural stuff in sci-fi, and that's really cool, but also it was still being written a lot by American white men. And so it wasn't as good as it could be. And so it's great to kind of take a game that tried really hard to be inclusive, but didn't quite hit the mark, like you said, and being able to kind of like push it over the line. And okay, now let's be as inclusive as possibly could by bringing those people, those diverse voices in. And it's not necessarily an admonishment of the original game, but rather it's they couldn't quite, the resources weren't there where they are now because we have the internet. We can reach out and get freelancers all over the world to work on a project like this.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's one of the things I was very pleased with. It's like, the section on China and Southeast Asia, Cassandra Kaw, who, grew up in Malaysia, and, that was awesome for her to bring stuff in there about China and also about Southeast Asia. That was, a take that, I had never seen before and wouldn't have thought of, but, works perfectly.
Right. Yeah, no, we did a lot on Exalted too, where if we have a culture that's inspired by a real world culture, we'll try to get folks from that real world culture. And then of course, on Scion, we did that a whole bunch for all the pantheons.
Oh, obviously, yeah, and awesomely too, yeah.
So yeah, so that's something that I think is becoming a lot more prevalent in our industry. I've seen a lot of threads and tweets and stuff, even recently, about hiring a cultural consultant or sensitivity readers and things like that. I'm glad it's becoming more prevalent. Because for a long time, I mean, especially on the subject of sensitivity readers, it was just up to, hopefully nothing slipped past the developers, and then maybe the editor might catch a couple things that are weird, but no one's actively like reading it looking for problems. Of that nature. So I am glad that we have that element now, because we've been talking about that for, like I said, for Exalted even, is like if we have a culture that's kind of inspired by real world cultures, like maybe you want to have somebody take a look at it and make sure that, you know, nothing's gone sideways.
Yeah. You know, when I've written for Exalted, I've, you know, tried to bring in a variety of, you know, anything from, you know, old science fiction to, you know, various things from my anthropological background.
Right, yeah. One of the rules on Exalted for us is that nothing is ever inspired by just one real world culture. It's always a blend of at least two for the most part.
Yeah, yeah.
So like the realm is a lot of both Chinese and Japanese and also Roman.
Yeah.
Which is super cool. So yeah. So what other projects have you worked on that you'd like to talk about, but either for us or for somebody else?
Oh, let's see. Well, I mean, I'm thinking a lot about the other big thing I'm working on now, which is stuff with Mindjammer for Mindjammer Press, run by Sarah Newton, which, I mean, partly I love fantasy games. I love reading fantasy, but, you know, with Aeon, with Mindjammer, I mean, my heart is science fiction. I mean, that's what I grew up reading the most of, and that's what I like, you know, mostly to game. You know, I played a lot of Traveller way back in the day, and yep, and you know, so I'm really excited to be doing a great deal about that and have, you know, lots of plans for expanding things. And there's going to be another Kickstarter for like 3rd edition Mindjammer since 2nd edition came out. Gosh, feeling old now, almost a decade ago. So when it's a decade, there'll be a new edition. And yeah, no, I mean, I love settings that, you know, are pretty much optimistic, you know, traveling the stars kind of science fiction. And, you know, that we can get beyond not merely our planet, but the solar system and go out and see what the heck is out there and settle it. And, you know, new cultures are created and new worlds explored and, you know, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's part of why Trinity is so cool. And I have not played Mindjammer, but now I will have to look it up because it sounds really cool.
Actually, as you mentioned sci-fi, but also, if I remember correctly, John, you've also done a lot of work on Eclipse Phase too, right?
Oh yes, yes. That's getting to be a little while now because, you know, I haven't worked yet on anything with the 2nd edition, which is going to be out soon. But yeah, no, I got in on the ground floor with that one. A friend of mine, Bruce Baugh, knew some of the people involved and immediately thought of me, and, you know, had them contact me and said before that a cryptic email of, make sure you have some space in your schedule. There's something probably coming up that you really want to work on. and then that showed up. It's like, thank you, Bruce. You are entirely correct.
Yeah, no, I love Eclipse Phase, and I mean, I am friends with Adam Jury, like full disclosure, but it's really funny too because Matthew talks about it a lot, and Matthew talks about it as a game he never wants to work on because he loves it so much, and he just wants to play it.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, he said that on the podcast where he's like I don't really want to work for it because I love it, and yeah.
Huh. Because I anytime I'm like love something, I want to, like, you know, get in there and tinker. Hopefully for the best in most cases.
Yeah. I mean, you've also worked on, gosh, you've worked on a lot of Chronicles projects, especially the 1st editions when it was New World of Darkness. You were on the original Changeling and Geist, weren't you?
Yep.
Among other things.
Yeah, no, Changeling remains my absolute, well, The Lost. I worked also on 20th Anniversary Changeling the Dreaming. But,
right.
yeah, Changeling the Lost remains my absolute favorite of any of the Chronicle of Darkness games. I think it's just a really fascinating setting with really nifty characters where it's like, you know, sure, these are characters who've been through, you know, often horrible, frequently unimaginable by anyone who hasn't been there, for good, bad, or just weird experiences, but now they're back home, and it's one of the games I see as having really the most possibility for good people being heroes, rising above very odd, troubling, creepy, whatever circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, Changeling the Lost, particularly second edition, which is what we've talked about a lot on this podcast, obviously, since it just came out.
Yeah.
It gets cited on this podcast fairly often as being one of our most terrifying games, and by fans in general, because yeah, you escaped this experience, but how did it change you? And also, you can't go home,
Right.
like
Yeah.
you just can't.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because from the outside, just looking in, I think most people would think that Changeling is probably one of the lighter games if you don't know all the context, and then game like Promethean is one of the most horrifying games. But actually, Promethean's very hopeful, and
Yes.
Changeling is kind of terrifying.
Yeah. But
So-
I mean, it has the basic optimism of you can rise above stuff.
Uh-huh.
Now you sure, there is always the option of you will eventually become some weird creepy thing and go back and become one of the Fae and start the whole cycle of abuse over again. But there's no necessity for doing that. I mean, if you're a bad person, you will, but you can be somebody else. You can be somebody who saves people from this and helps them get over it, and works with people to prevent them from being taken by the Fae who recently escaped, to break people out of Arcadia even.
Right, yeah. You can kind of choose your path in that, and of course there's lots of different ways that your path can go. Which is, I mean, I love that game. As everyone knows for second edition, like I love Rose and I love Megan and I love what they did with it. All the writers on it were fantastic. So I am super happy with second edition. Just in general, but also with the concept of Changeling as a game at all is just really cool.
Yeah.
So you also worked on Mage the Awakening a whole lot, is that correct?
Yep.
What was that like? Do you have any projects you are really proud of, or any stories from that?
Well, it's like, I loved Mage the Ascension, and that was of the Old World of Darkness stuff. That was the one that really called to me, and so it's like a new mage, cool. And then for a while, some of my early projects, it's like I'm not really getting what this just really, there's neat stuff, but it feels like a less good version. And then working on Astral Realms, when it really just came together, and I've heard fans say that's the book that made them love Mage the Awakening, and that's the book that writing it made me just absolutely love it.
Really?
Because working with the whole Astral Realms and getting to create the basic structure and stuff, and I was thinking, this is really cool. I mean, this brings stuff to the table. It isn't just not as cool as Mage the Ascension. It's its own thing, and it really, really works. And I mean, I absolutely love the changes that have been made with Mage the Awakening second edition. I think it brings a lot of that, the stuff I love about it, forward, and it no longer seems like, really, it seems a lot less like a knockoff of Mage the Ascension.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with Chronicles, and particularly with all the second editions of all the Chronicles games, we definitely tried to step away even more from their classic World of Darkness analogs, if they had one. Just because that's, I don't know, I had no idea what was going on, obviously, around the time when they were all first published, since I wasn't with the company at all then. But I think that there almost might have been a fear that if they made it a little too different, people wouldn't want to play it. And I think that now in, 2010 and beyond, we've kind of gone like, nah, let's have fun with them.
I came in just right after that happened, but I know I've talked to Justin a little bit about this. I've talked to Rich a lot about it, and that really is, I think, kind of the case, is that they weren't sure particularly with Requiem, how far they could go.
Yeah.
And so like, but like if you see like, you know, Forsaken gets a little bit further from the Apocalypse formula, and then Awakening, I think, is really where it starts to kind of kick into high gear, like you said, John. It's kind of not quite an idealized version of Ascension, because Ascension is its own very separate cool thing, but rather it's take what's cool about Ascension and then completely reframe it differently. I know Bill Bridges chatted with me once about it, and because I was working on the live action version of Ascension, which was a challenge, let me tell you.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I was luckily Bill was gracious enough at the time to let me kind of pick his brains, and one of the things he kind of told me was that Ascension was very much steeped in real world magical traditions, and then what would happen if that was all objectively real? You could actually change the world with it. Whereas Awakening, it was much more, you have the wizard in a fantasy tower, and then you put them into the modern world. So it's kind of a backwards approach to the same core concept. And so that's why, you know, the idea that going higher is more aspirational, and you know, hubris being such a stronger bit of it is much more from that kind of the fantastical pulp fantasy, even Tolkienian fantasy approach to magic as an aesthetic. But you know, that's supposed to be really start thinking about, okay, how can we really reinvigorate this? Whereas Werewolf and the first issues of Werewolf and Vampire were still pretty close to their antecedents.
Yeah, no, I love what's happened with Werewolf the Forsaken second edition, where it feels a lot less, you know, like a sort of slightly different homage to Werewolf the Apocalypse, and much more its own thing. But yeah, no, Mage the Awakening, I mean, it is fundamentally a game about Gnosticism. And really, you know, Ascension wasn't. Ascension was about, you know, altering reality rather than transcending it.
Right. I can definitely see that. I'm obviously like not the expert on either Mage game, but I am a fan of both, and I have read through quite a lot for both of them. And I like what Awakening Second has done and is doing, because we've got some more stuff coming out for that very soon, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Because we've got Signs of Sorcery in the works. There's of course some chapters in Dark Eras 2 that cover Mage the Awakening, and a new Night Horrors book, which is awesome.
Cool.
So I mean, if you ever want to come back and work on some more Mage stuff, John, just let me know.
Oh yeah, well, Signs of Sorcery, I wrote part of that, so.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's a matter of, at this point, generally, you know, balancing my schedule and, you know, trying to find nifty projects that, you know, both I want to work on and that there's time for me to work on.
Yeah, I definitely have that problem sometimes with my freelance editing plus my in-house stuff. It's like, how much do I take on?
Yeah, and actually we were that before the show, Dixie and I were just chatting about like actually not even before the show, but like a couple weeks ago, I remember we were talking about like how do you take on too much, and you know, where's that line kind of drawn, and sometimes you have to turn down stuff that's potentially cool. I know I turned down some work recently. I was like, I really loved the concept of it, but it just didn't quite work in my time frame, and you know, just couldn't make everything piece together. And that's always frustrating when you're a freelancer, because like there's always cool stuff out there. I mean, luckily we're working in an industry where there's always exciting, interesting, amazing products being made that you're like, oh, I want a piece of that, I want a piece of that. And so it's sometimes hard to kind of pick and choose, but you know, so I think we all tend towards a little bit of overwork. Probably, you know, to take on too much.
You think?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I have had to, you know, turn down assignments. None, you know, I make sure to prioritize the stuff I really want to do, but stuff it's like, oh man, I'd like to do that, but it's like I'm booked, or you know, sometimes it's like, you know, well, I see my schedule's blocked out for the next few months, and this comes, you know, next month, and it's full. There is no room. Or usually it's like I can do a little bit. I mean, you know, it's like recently, last year, you know, there'd been some delays, and I'd really wanted to work on for the Conan game for Modiphius, the King Kull book, because really that's the part of, I like that much more than Conan, and I think it's really cool and weird and mystical. But I only wrote a couple thousand words for it, because when it finally came around, it's like there's no time to write any more than a couple thousand words. That is the absolute maximum I can do. So, I got my oar in and write
people... Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, and I got to do a couple things in it that I really wanted, but I wanted to actually write a huge portion of the book. It's like that was not happening.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know quite a few freelancers who will like take on 1,000 or 2,000 words on a project just to get their name in that book because they want to work on it so bad. But they're like, I just don't have time to actually work on this. Oh no. Like I've got quite a few friends who are like, oh yeah, I wrote part of the intro to this one game. I'm like, okay. Which, unfortunately, as an editor, I can't do that for the most part. I can't go like, yeah, I'll edit a chapter.
Yeah. Wow.
So when I'm trying to, figure out if I can take on a project or not, it's usually minimum 50,000 words that I have to look at. And that's really that's almost frustrating sometimes, because I see how many of my writer friends can be working on like 20 things at once. And part of my brain keeps going, how do they do that? And then I'm like, well, Dixie, they're not writing the entire book for every single one of these books.
Yes.
And I think realizing that helped me feel a little bit better about my own work, because for a long time I thought maybe I was just like, I'm like, oh, I'm not doing enough. And then it's like every single project you do is a whole book. Like,
yeah, no, that's huge.
Yeah, so like once I came to that realization, it made my life a lot easier, because I kept going like, I would look at like Megan Fitzgerald, who's developing 2 books and working on Star Trek Adventures, all this other stuff, which I think you worked on Star Trek too.
Yep.
Yeah, but like I look at someone like her or someone like you who's working on all this really neat stuff, and I'll be like, how do I do 12 projects at once? And the answer is you don't if you're an editor.
Right.
Like writing, art, a little bit easier to do that with, but not editing books or proofing them. So, yeah, but so I'm going to, because you were talking about taking on cool projects, I don't know how much work you did on this, but, I always go through people's credits before we do one of these podcasts. And I have to come to you as a fan right now. What did you do on the Mistborn RPG? Because I'm a huge Brandon Sanderson fan. I love the Mistborn series.
Oh, I did basically all the stuff in both the original and the Alloy of Law supplement about using the metals.
That's so cool.
Yeah, well, one of my specialties is writing magic systems.
Really?
Right.
At this point, I used to have a number, but it's outdated. I think it's more than 20.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, some of it has been books like Hedge Magic for 3rd edition Ars Magica, where, I wrote 4. But, yeah, no. So, I was like, a friend of mine had recommended the Mistborn books to me, and I read them, and then just completely by chance, when I was like, when's the next book coming out? I heard there's a new series. It was just right after the, books, the first 3 were done. And then I got to know, it's like, this company I've never heard of, Crafty Games, is doing an RPG. And it was like, hey, I've written a heck of a lot of stuff, and I love these books and just finished them. And so, they got me on board, and I wrote. And that was really cool, because, I mean, in addition to, like, really liking them, it was just, they were really fresh in my mind. It was like, when we first started talking about be doing it, I had, finished the last book, the week before.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Sorry, I could not tell if there was a quiet because of a technical issue, or if you were just going quiet, because sometimes
no, I was sort of done.
We can put the awkward silence song in there.
Awkward
right, Eddie?
silence, awkward silence time.
I thought you were never going to sing on this
Yeah,
podcast,
well.
and here we are.
Yep.
It'll probably get ruined in translation anyway. It's fine. I'll just cut it back out.
But yeah, so like I'm a big Miss Bourne fan. I'm a big Brandon Sanderson fan in general. So if anybody's ever developing anything on any of his properties and they need an editor, they should call me.
But actually, if you don't mind, you say you've worked on so many Magic systems. What kinds of things do you think about when you're designing a Magic system?
Well, a lot of it is, very situational dependent. It's like, what is this? I mean, I guess the first question is really, what can the magic that I'm doing here not do? I mean, I think one of the things about magic as opposed to something in science fiction is it's like, well, what can magic do? Well, anything in possibility in all the different novels and movies and etc. And so, my first thought is, all right, what's the shape of this one? What are the limits? What can't it do? And that sort of, defines what I'm doing. And for something like Mistborn, it was pretty
Find
easy.
the edges of the box, as it were.
Yeah, because, Sanderson really laid out, I mean, that's one of his gifts, is writing all manner of different nifty magic systems that are very evocative. And, there it was just, how do I translate his vision into something people can and want to play? But a lot of times it's just, well, I have this vague, outline or some discussion and stuff. It's like, well, what do I do with this? And so just, find the shape. What is this particular one like? Is this, a very narrow thing that can do a few things awesomely? Is this one of those things that, like magic in Mage the Awakening or Ascension, where, if you know the right stuff, you can do pretty much anything.
Yeah, no, that's something that I think is really also when folks just are good at designing systems in general, because that's definitely something that you can learn, but some people are just very talented at it.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you've done more than 20 different magic systems, that's a lot. Because I was having trouble, writing a few spells for the Pugmire book I'm working on because I'm not used to writing mechanics. So I very much value people who are good mechanics writers. Especially for the more complex magic systems that exist in various games. Like I am just in awe of everyone who can write charms on Exalted.
Oh my gosh.
Because charms are very complicated, and I cannot say that I understand how to write them completely. Yeah,
first edition, it was pretty easy because, it was hewing fairly close to, older mechanics. But, charms for Exalted now, largely I like leaving that to other people and want to write setting material for Exalted because it's really complicated these days. I find it intimidating.
Yeah, there are a few people on the team who can write them. Of course, Robert Vance is probably the most prolific charms writer.
Yes.
But we've been trying to, train up some other folks. It's just, it's not an easy system to kind of like grab right away. It's a lot of fun when you do. And it, means you get to roll giant buckets of dice across the table, which is super fun. Because who doesn't love doing that? But, I mean, even on like the Onyx Path Dice Roller, when I plug in 40 dice, I get really excited because I'm like, look at them all bouncing around.
Oh yeah, I remember my first Exalted game where I was playing a Lunar back in first edition. It's like, the big combo, which was 42 dice, and it was like, all right, let's roll all the dice in the table twice. It was great.
Yeah, anybody that asks, don't you have enough D10s when they see that I have 40 or 50 of them? I'm like, you've never played Exalted.
Yep.
I need more D10s. I need 3,000 D10s at any given time.
Roll them all at once, simultaneously.
Yeah, it's fun. It's such a satisfying sound. Just drop them on a table.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, it's like if you play Chronicles World of Darkness and you think rolling 6 dice is fun, try Exalted. Yeah, no, I'm actually really excited. We have the Lunars Kickstarter coming up really soon for the 3rd edition Lunars. And I cannot wait to see what happens with that and what the stretch goals are going to be.
Yeah.
Because by the time this drops, it should be coming out very shortly.
Cool. Like right around the time this goes to air.
Yeah, it'd be like a week later, I want to say. But yeah, super cool. I'm really excited about the Lunars Kickstarter. I cannot wait. And I'm excited about the other Exalted projects that will probably come out of it. And, you'll probably be on one of them, John, because you've been on a lot of them recently.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, Lunars are cool. I mean, they're just, I love shapeshifters and out in the fringes of creation where things get really weird. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. Question, do you do any fiction writing, or mostly just setting and mechanic stuff?
I mean, I've done, fiction for games. I've long ago tried my hand at just, hi, I'm going to write fiction. I am terrible at it. It just does not work for me. I love reading. I've read huge amounts. I could talk extensively about trends in science fiction, fantasy, but I can't write it.
Yeah, I mean, I've felt the same way about myself. Like I took writing courses in college. I've been a reader my entire life, like an incredibly just voracious reader. I can talk about books forever. Books are like my first love. And I'm not a great writer. I can write to spec. I am learning. Like if someone gives me an outline for a book, I can totally fill in the gaps. But writing like a plot, I'm like, what's a plot? Like, I don't want to... Plots are things that I get to enjoy. They are not things that I want to put on a page.
Yeah,
so I totally feel you. Also, when you've read so much science fiction and fantasy, if you're in the same boat that I am, or with my romance novel reading, once you've read so much and anything you sit down to write feels derivative.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to get over that hump. I'll start writing and then I'll be like, oh, I'm just trying to write a worse version of a Neil Gaiman short story I already read. So
yeah, I mean that's one of the things I try to do in my role-playing writing is just like you were talking about for Exalted, multiple sources of inspiration or sort of, sideways sources of inspiration. It's like one of the things that for writing Scavenger Sons for Exalted, which was, the first setting book. Mm-hmm. And, I was like, well, what can I do to make this? I mean, creation, even back then, was obviously very different from most fantasy worlds. And it was just like, all right, let's set myself a rule that I cannot be inspired by anything from fantasy. I'm looking for science fiction and adapting it, because that made it, non-derivative, because, I'm taking some world out in space that, they're in an interstellar war or something like that, and putting it in creation. And so you obviously have to change a bunch.
Right. That's actually a really clever way of going about it, too. I should point that out to some of the guys.
Absolutely.
Give them new inspiration. Or let's make them all listen to the Pathcast, because, why not?
Yes.
Yep.
Force them all to your whim.
You have to listen to this episode with John Snead so that you can learn more about Exalted writing. I won't tell them it's not until the 48-minute mark.
Right. Go all the way through. Sorry, buddy.
I am an evil overlord all of a sudden.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, gosh, you've done so much in your career. It's always so fun to talk to folks like you, or like Joe Carricker, or even Rich Thomas, who have been working in this industry for a long time and have just got so many things under their belts. I think there are a lot of us who are trying to get to that point eventually.
Yes.
Where we've worked on literally everything, but it takes time.
Yeah,
and it takes commitment and passion.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about how the industry is changing with, suddenly, I mean, when I was first going to Gen Con when I lived in Madison, Wisconsin, before I was, and, at the early stages of doing gaming writing. And, you go there and down to Milwaukee, and it is the sea of white men.
Mm-hmm.
And, my gaming group, we all went, and, my friend, then Sarah, now Aaron, because transitioning and everything like that was one of the few people who was at that point identified as female in the whole convention hall. It was really sad, and everybody was white. And now I go, and the crowd is more diverse at Gen Con, and so are the authors, and that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm very happy when I go to gaming conventions now to see diversity kind of, creeping its way in there. Seeing more people of color that are creating and that are also consuming, and seeing more women that are creating and consuming. Just across the entire spectrum of representation. I know is something that we as a company care about quite a bit, but also that I just, as a person, it gives me joy to see how inclusive the industry is, and also see how quickly they are to kind of point out bad actors when someone is not on board with that mission, because I've worked with so many folks now who are just young and bright and wonderful and full of hope, and to them the industry has been very welcoming. And it wasn't that way 20 years ago. Not that I was in the industry 20 years ago, but I mean even just gaming, like when I was 14.
Oh yeah, no, the stories I've heard are both just with gaming and with women in the industry back in the day. It was hard, and it's and that's one of the things I really like about Onyx Path. I mean, there are these days an enormous number of just amazingly talented women writing for it, and now I've upcoming Aeon book. Let's see. Oh yes, all right, and I talk to Monica and Megan, and it's cool. They do awesome work, and it's neat.
Yeah, we have quite a few women developers now, which is great too. Because for a long time, I think some of the attitude was well, they can write, but they can't do system work, because it was thought of, there's that old trope about math being for men.
Yeah.
Which is so hilarious when you look at it, because, I think that, Megan and Danielle are two of our more brilliant systems people.
Yeah.
Yes, I would like to, call out Danielle on this of just, with the story path system. I mean, the game was just sort of, the whole Trinity Continuum thing was languishing for a while because no one could figure out how to really. It was, the system was about 90% complete, but that's a very big difference from 100%. And, some of the edges really didn't match. And, I was like, is this game ever going to be done? Or is this just going to fail? And then, several years ago, Danielle came on and, just hammered it into shape. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and, in talking with her about it, I had some suggestions, and sometimes she took these suggestions, and that was awesome. And sometimes she explained to me why my suggestions were wrong and her ideas were better. And I looked at it in retrospect. It's no, you're right. It's in the psychic powers rules, she reviewed them because we're still in the very early days of getting everything settled. And, with the author I had, he'd done something fairly complex that I'd simplified, so I was pretty pleased. And Danielle's no, this is just too complicated. Change this, compress these 8 different things into 4. And I mean, she was completely right. I mean, it is now a much more playable system.
Yeah.
It actually reminds me of the old adage is the first 90% of the project takes 90% of the time. The last 10% of the project takes 90% of the time.
Yeah.
It's really true.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah. Putting all the finishing touches on something, especially, making sure a new system works. I mean, we've addressed that on the podcast before, but that's part of why Scion took long, is because once Trinity started getting its system fixed, Scion went, oh, hey.
Which was, once again, that was Danielle coming up with a bunch of ideas that, Neil was also going, yeah. Well, I mean, that was a really challenging project because it's a fairly complex system. And, I mean, the other ones I've worked on. It's like first edition Exalted. It was like, a tweak of the system for Trinity. While there's definitely, Onyx Path system in the bones of Story Path, we really sort of built it from the ground up from some very basic first principles of like, yes, they're going to be dice pools, and yes, they're going to be, roughly the same attributes, but, there were talks like, do we need skills and things? I mean, just really, going completely from the ground up. And, I think it's a really cool result, but, that was hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I've heard many stories about the development of the story path system, and now we do kind of have it hammered out, and we can apply it to other games, and it's great. But I know it was a long road to get there.
long and contentious. I mean, it was like various of us were like arguing with each other, and this is way before Danielle came on board. But we were arguing back and forth, and I mean, kudos to Neil for saying that's like, let's take a step back here, and then I started doing that too. It's like, what we need to do is agree, not win.
Right. Now that's very, very good practices.
Yes.
So one thing that I love to ask people who are really prolific as we start to wrap up and who have worked on a ton of different stuff is, what would you like to work on that you have not gotten to yet?
Oh, well, there are, I mean, at this point, a lot of what I'm thinking about is, my own game, coming up with the ideas and things like that.
Of course, yeah.
And I have two wacky ideas, one of which a version of which is going to happen. It's just, a couple years down the road. One of them, the one that I've not found anyone to pitch yet, is basically Steam Age, Hellenistic Age, because one of my far too many college degrees is in classics. And, I love technology, and just, instead of, the Victorian era or something, have something happen so you get, this back in like, the late Hellenistic age with, Rome and Alexandria and all that kind of stuff. And, I don't know if anyone would even want to play this, much less, if I'll ever get a chance to write it. But it's an idea I play around with. And, occasionally thought about, I could do this Patreon thing, and maybe that will happen. And the other one that, a version will happen, which is, of course, another interstellar science fiction game, but with the idea that anything above, technology not all that far in advance of our own is not technology. It's magic, like full on, cast a spell. It's like, no, you cannot exceed the speed of light with technology. You have to like tinker with the rules of reality to do this by like casting magic.
So like a true sci-fi fantasy project.
Yes.
Or fantasy sci-fi, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, science fantasy kind of thing.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, and there's a version of this that is basically, it's not quite this idea, but it's close enough to definitely make me happy that I think I can talk about of something that Mindjammer Press will eventually do. And I don't think I should. No, people. Yeah, okay. It's basically an adjunct to Chronicles of Future Earth that they just did, which is science fantasy on Earth. Just Earth like 100,000 years in the future, where things have gotten really strange.
Very cool. Well, that's
really
awesome.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Eddie, do you have any other questions for John before we wrap up?
No, I think honestly this has been very, very insightful and a nice little kind of trip through the wide panoply of things you've worked on. So I'm very excited about this interview.
Yeah, and I mean, you can still get Trinity on BackerKit, I do believe.
I think so.
Yes, I want to say yes.
So, Well, I mean, I know it hasn't gone to indexing yet, so I know it's still got a little bit of ways to go before we're going to close all that stuff off. So if you're interested in that, go for it. And if you're interested in anything else that he's worked on, we'll provide some links in the show notes, as always. So, John, where can people find you, follow you, if they want to follow your work on the interwebs?
Okay, well, I'm on Facebook as John Snead. More prolifically, I'm on Dreamwidth as Heron61, where, in both cases, I sometimes talk about gaming, more like, talk about what nifty book or TV I've seen. And
yeah, why not?
Yeah, and I have a website that I don't update very much, so it's like years out of date now. But if you want to see, my ideas about gaming, frankly, RPGNet's the best place for that, because I'm definitely a regular there.
Oh, totally. That's awesome. Well, cool. Well, thank you for doing this today. I had a lot of fun talking to you. I definitely learned some things I didn't know, like the 20 magic system thing is still blowing my mind. And you said that it's way more than that now, so.
20 plus.
Yeah. 20 plus magic systems. I'm like, I can't write a spell.
Yes, well, when I've been doing this for, almost 30 years, yeah. I mean, full time, more like 20, but, my first project was, 30 years ago.
Okay, so you're saying give it like 2+ more decades.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll keep that in mind.
No problem.
All right, well, that was it. Thank you for being here, and we're going to go to the outro. And we're back. Wasn't that fun?
That was a lot of fun.
I had loads of fun.
Sitting in your corner.
Yeah.
Put you in a box.
I was doing work.
At least you were put into a closet like I was.
You really think that a closet is worse than a box? Like, closets have space to stand.
You gotta get in the box.
Depends on the size of the box, I suppose.
Oh, no. I just learned that reference like 2 weeks ago. True, that's on the size of the box. And much like a cat, I think Matthew feels more comfortable and at home. Nestled in a box.
Especially if I'm infiltrating.
You'd be more comfortable.
If I was underwater in a box,
Right.
maybe it would depend on the material that the box was made of. Because if it was cardboard, it probably wouldn't withstand the submersion.
That's true.
Probably not. We can just leave the box up to our listeners' imagination.
Yeah, that's because we're creators. We can say.
Please send us fan art of Matthew in a box.
Yes, we can say.
Okay, the box is up to you.
Now this is getting dangerously close to death threat.
So, yeah, don't do that.
So happy there.
This is Matthew in a box, underwater, covered in cement.
I keep telling you guys I'm the nice one, and you keep acting like I'm not. But I'm picturing him all like cozy, like a little cat, like all happy in their little box, and y'all are like, he's dead.
Well, no, whereas I've got the solid snake imagery, me infiltrating Green Ronin, apparently, in a cardboard box. To take out someone at Green Ronin, but who? That's the question.
I don't know.
This is all becoming very morbid. So yeah, that was actually a fun interview. I listened to it, which is appropriate, I guess, as I'm one of the co-hosts here.
Well, no, he's worked on so much stuff that we didn't even get to talk about. I mean, he's got such a long history in the industry, which is super cool to me. Because I mean, he's worked on the Conan D20 books. He's worked on at least one Doctor Who project, Dying Earth, like all kinds of stuff that we didn't even get around to. So I hope that everybody enjoyed listening to the stuff we did get around to. It's possible, he or one of his co-developers may warrant a part 2 at some point because their careers are so interesting and long.
I think it would be hugely beneficial to do like a deep dive episode with a guest like John. His knowledge of games and, well, as we mentioned before, the number of systems he's worked on is so vast. Getting him to talk about one of them with another developer maybe would be quite interesting to listen to, I think.
Right. Yeah, we've not done any of our deep dives with a guest instead of one of us, but I think it would be fun to either have a past guest back on to do a deep dive into one of their projects, or to get someone new in the future. But we are going to do a point where we have not had all of our writers and all of our developers on here, obviously, yet, because we have so many of them. So we'll definitely keep having new guests, but, it could be fun to have somebody back to talk about something, especially maybe as something is releasing or going to Kickstarter or what have you.
Yeah.
So I have no problem with that. Most of the podcasts that I listen to do repeat guests. That's always fun. People are always like, oh, that person's back. That's cool.
Yeah. People like continuity.
Speaking of continuity, something we need to think about is that in about roughly 10 episodes, we're going to hit our 50th episode.
What?
My God.
Pathcast turns 50.
So, because this one's going to be 38, I want to say. I actually don't have the number in front of me, so this is, of course, a terrible time to bring this up. But
I'm going to look
I
it
was
up.
thinking as I was doing a recording on a previous episode, it's like, wow, we're getting close. We need to think about maybe if there's something cool we can do on the 50th. So,
well, Apollo just jumped into my lap, and he's very excited. So,
well, good. As long as it's not Bebop.
It's not Bebop, but Apollo is the loud one.
Oh.
So I'm trying to make him be very quiet right now. He's very loud all the time. But yeah, no, I'm also all for having our meetings about what we plan to do with the podcast while we're on the podcast. That's a good turn we've taken. We should definitely keep doing this. But yeah, that'll be really exciting. It's kind of funny because we started this thing kind of on it could be fun to do a podcast kind of thing. Yep. And now we've been doing it for close to a year, which is really cool. For me, at least. I don't know about you guys.
No, I mean, it's actually, it is really exciting. So I was like, kind of like, oh, wow, we should do something because it is a kind of a big moment. I mean, this could have been like we do a couple episodes and we're like, we're done. But between all of the fans listening and supporting us and talking to us online about it, you guys helping out with it. I waxed poetic about this in the New Year's episode. I won't go over it again, but it does show that there's some excitement about that. And I mean, we do have so many cool people we work with that the interviews are fun, but if we could maybe find something special to do, whether we get a super special guest or we do, like you said, a deep dive with a guest, maybe we can figure out a way to actually get 4 people in the recording simultaneously. It doesn't involve us all going to Milwaukee. Something.
Especially right now, because, it's real cold.
Well, that's true, yeah. It's colder now than it was when we were in Milwaukee, which is impressive.
Yeah, much, much colder. But yeah, no, we can definitely start talking about that soon. I'm pretty excited.
We should just do a clip show.
We just a full-on clip show.
Yeah.
We did get a lot of positive feedback when we used you as clips in an episode, Matthew. So.
Yeah, well, that tells me what my place should be.
He was totally here the whole time. We also show a montage of Matthew interrupting me. Just a beautiful montage every time.
It would just be my voice, just nothing but my voice. Well, here's an interesting stat for you as we're currently celebrating ourselves. The Onyx Pathcast, according to Podbean, has had 37.5 thousand downloads.
Wow.
Yeah, it says it's on the recommended screen right now. That's in general. It doesn't seem to be for for me specifically. So that's nice. We're recommended to people because apparently it has been. People have clicked play on our Pathcast 37.5 thousand times,
which means that we're averaging about 1,000 downloads an episode.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is. That's pretty cool. Good numbers for an RPG podcast, honestly. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, especially for an RPG podcast that isn't like an actual play or a wide-ranging thing, like we are, still representing our company.
Right.
So I think that's really, really cool.
And not Green Ronin. We're not representing Green Ronin.
Not that there's anything wrong with them. But no. Okay, so now we have access to a theoretical 37,500 fans. We need to do something really influential. We need to tell them to buy something.
If only we had books to sell.
Yeah.
only.
What should we push? Like the newest drug on the corner. Let's go for Changeling the Lost second edition, because we haven't really we've not bumped it up enough. It only recently came out around midwinter time and has been doing very, very well. I got my copy at midwinter, and the book just looks and feels fantastic. This is, to my mind, it is first edition was wonderful. No doubt about it. I think it's widely acclaimed to this day. And to be able to top that with the second edition took some doing. But Megan and Rose and the rest of the team were able to do it. And I think it is a book that, at the very least, warrants downloading from DriveThruRPG as a PDF so you can take it in, even if you don't want to buy a print copy. But do buy a print copy, because it's a beautiful book and something worth having on a shelf. And playing with, of course, that's also quite important.
It's true. You can play the game as well. The book allows you to do that.
And I mean, it's telling that we just talked about how John's had such a long career, and yet he spent so much time in that interview talking about Changing the Lost specifically and how great he thought that game was. So I mean, that is, I think, telling, honestly.
Yeah, because he did quite a lot for first edition on it. So. Yeah, no, I love that book. That was one of my, little baby projects when I came on that I was already involved with. So it's kind of cool that I've gotten to see it through to completion, Like, that is one of the books that when I took it over from Rose specifically, because she is a good friend of mine, I was very like, I will take it and I will get it through the rest of the process, like, for you, and then it happened. So that's great.
Like the handing over of the sword.
Yeah, exactly. All right, it's probably about time to wrap this up. So, Eddy, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter as Eddy Fate, EDDYFATE. You can find me on Facebook as Eddy Web Writer, and you can find me just about anywhere professionally at pugsteady.com.
And Matthew?
Well, if I've not lost the use of my tongue. I was going to very wittily, of course, say if I'm not in a box at the bottom of the sea, but now that moment's gone, I'll move on. You can find me on Twitter as ClackClickBang. You can find me on the Onyx Path forum as The Gentleman Gamer. You can find me on YouTube as The Gentleman Gamer. You can find me on the Onyx Path YouTube channel as The Gentleman Gamer. I'm everywhere as The Gentleman Gamer. And what's more, I'm currently doing my Scion recaps of the chronicle I've been running, the story I've been running of Tokyo Noir, which has been going very well, and people really seem to be engaging with it on the YouTube channel. Please leave comments with your ideas of interesting characters, events, scenes, locations I can be putting into that game, because I'm using those ideas and I'm calling them out, and the posters who made those ideas, whenever I mention them in my recaps.
Oh, talk about your audiobook thing too, real quick.
Well, I was going to talk about that, but okay.
Oh, someone talk about the audiobook thing.
This is becoming very aggressive.
Matthew is also reading the Scarredlands novel Vigilant on YouTube right now.
Yes.
You can definitely tune into that and comment and talk to us about that, because we are interested in seeing if anybody wants audio fiction content from Onyx Path as well. If Vigilant for Scarredlands, gets pretty good feedback and stuff, we might be looking into doing some other books, whether they're fiction compilations or even books like, maybe Beckett's Jihad Diary, because that would be an awesome read aloud book. I think it would be a cool read aloud book. I don't know about y'all, but
I will do all 300 voices.
We don't know any voice actors, as we established on social media.
Yeah.
No, we should definitely
none.
It's so shame we don't know any voice actors, Jacob.
No voice actors. Not especially not Jacob.
I bet he could point us in the direction of one, though.
That's true.
Maybe one. Someone, Matt Mercer, maybe. Yeah.
Actually, Jacob knows the voice of Sailor Moon. And that still freaks me out. Like, they're friends on Facebook, and now Facebook has suggested to me that I should add her as a friend a couple times, and I'm like, no, that's weird. We only have one mutual contact. Anyway, you can find me most anywhere as Dixie Cyanide. You can find us at theonyxpath.com or the Onyx Path on most social media. As always, many worlds, one podcast.